Sometimes you guys send me some emails and they're super long answers and I can't type. This is not a joke. I'm always very honest about this stuff. I can't type. I am a hunt and peck person. And so I say, okay, listen, I'm just going to answer this one live. So Lisa, I'm going to answer your question live, and we're going to go over this in great detail. So thank you, Lisa, for the question. Here we are. Hello, Dr. Flynn. I've watched your question and answer sessions. I'm curious in more detail why you believe women should not fast, or what kind of fasting you would suggest. Okay, good. I'm happy you said that, because I'm very cautious about women fasting, and I'll explain why in great detail, but I have recommended it for certain women based on the things that are going on with them. There might have some issue that we need to deal with, and fasting may be a very important factor, like if a person has an ulcer. I believe that fasting does a wonderful job of helping that. But see, the reason why I'm very cautious about women fasting is because there's other physiological consequences. Remember, there's pros and cons to everything. There's pros and cons to taking medications. There's pros and cons to taking herbs. There's pros and cons to carnivore. There's pros and cons to a Mediterranean diet. There's pros and cons to everything. And I want people to always weigh those pros and cons out. And so I'm going to share you my pros, but I'm also going to show the cons. And I just look when it comes to women that women have more cons available than they have pros, even though there are pros. So I'll go over the pros of it, but also go over the cons of it. So Lisa, hang in there. I know you have been on multiple day fasts. Yes. Males, once again, unless they're really skinny, even then it could probably benefit them for what do. Fasting does a wonderful job with a male. Now, once again, I'm waiting for my supper tonight, and then I'll be back and I'll be fasting on Sunday night again, after supper, and then go all the way till Friday afternoon. Now, here's what happens this. Brandon and Dr. Eric came to me and said, we should try to break our record of 22 days. I'm like, oh. I'm like, you're killing me, Smalls. For you young ones, you don't remember what movie that is. But anyways, but Tom remembers that movie. All right, here we go. So let's keep on going on for Lisa's great question. Good job. Many others in your field state fasting 24 to 72 hours is healthy. It's a reset, etc., but they don't discuss the pros and cons of gendering. That's the true. See, that's one thing I have a very big problem with. We cannot generalize for everybody. I have never said that all men should fast. I've never said that all women should not fast. There's pros and cons, and the circumstances do dictate it. Now, in general, I have some overarching concerns with women, and I can explain those in just a second, but it's going to be more hormone related. But let's keep. I do dirty fasting. I have seen very good results with my weight as a 50, I can say her age, postmenopausal woman. I do high intensity train, 10 to 15 minutes a day, plus walk most days afterwards for 1 to 3 miles. I have cleaned up my eating. Awesome job. Try to stay away from rancid oils, sugars, and ingredients that I can not pronounce. Great job. So I can tell this woman, Lisa, is taking her health very seriously because she's making these positive changes. That's why I love reading these questions. I would like to understand and learn perspective on fasting for men. Husband has fasted 72 hours, and women, myself. All right, here we go. So let's start with you. So Lisa, I will tell you this. Being in a menopausal state, you have a more favorable aspect of actually fasting compared to women that are cyclic. Now, once again, you can still be affected by fasting, but let me go through this. The one thing that happens with females, any major intense stress they put their body through, there is a compensatory response. So for example, and that does happen with males. So for example, let's say all of a sudden I just don't eat for 24 hours. We're going to have some glucose that's going to drop. And that's a good thing for the vast majority of people, even women today, because most women have some weight they should be getting rid of. Then glycogen stores come out of your liver. You start pulling stuff from your muscles. You start, losing water weight and stuff like that. You seem less puffy. Once again, there's the benefits, okay? That's across the board of both men and women, as long as they actually, have some excess restores to have that way. Now, the downfall when it comes to women is this. That big of a change in the body says, okay, listen, I'm gonna have to regulate my blood sugar. So now cortisol and adrenaline is going to be released, trying to let go of, and mobilize glucose. So the adrenal effect now can also have an effect on a person that's cyclic or even menopausal, because here's what happens. Ladies, when you're menopausal, you determine a lot on adrenal sufficiency for you to produce your anabolic hormones, for you to produce your androgens. Men do too, except for men have maybe 1 to 3% of their total hormone production come from their adrenals. Women, as they get older, especially in menopause, there's a massive increase, but there's also a significant amount, percentage, roughly 20 to 30%, depends on what paper you read, that women depend on that for hormone production. So therefore, with that change, there can be a significant estrogen and progesterones that could change because there's such a big stress to the body, trying to regulate that blood sugar, trying to affect the anabolics. And so therefore, there can be some cyclic things that come to be a problem. In menopausal, you have a little bit better response because you don't need as much hormone. But if you go too long, you could actually cause an anabolic drop also because your adrenals, once again, are trying to deal with cortisol and adrenaline and all stuff with that with the major blood sugar issues. Now, across the board, if you have excess fast, you're going to have some benefit from fasting. You really will. You really will. But even with that, I can tell you one of my doctors, female doctors, she ended up with an ulcer. And it was pretty painful. Anything she ate, no matter if she ate the greatest meat, the greatest vegetable on the planet, it was downright painful. I said, listen, I'm going to have you fast for 72 hours. And I want you to take aloe juice, and that's it. And I said, but consequently, I'm a little worried about your cycle. And she did have a little bit of, weight she could have got rid of. So she fasted for 72 hours. Stomach changed quickly. She did lose some weight, and she was happy about that. But then her cycle was changed for about 3 months. And she had, her menstruating days changed. And then what happens, the flow changes a little bit and stuff like that. And that took us, some support for those production because there's that change neurologically. So LH and FSH can be affected, mainly FSH. So we had to support a little bit that way. So I'm just concerned about the things that change from an anabolic standpoint with a woman. And with a man, you don't really see that big a change. The small percentage that they get an anabolic response from their adrenals is so minimal that you do not see a big drop. Now, do men drop a little bit when they fast? Sure they do, by far, okay? But if a guy has normal testosterone levels at, let's say 600-700, and they drop to like, say, 550 or 650, not too much of a concern considering those are decent levels already. My levels were around above 800, and everything I'm doing, I'm trying to push them to 1,000, but fasting, I can honestly tell you that I probably have dropped a little bit, and maybe I didn't because I'm lifting weights every single day, and that can, stimulate and get my production. So therefore, it's something that I believe is very important. So